All right, here we go. Hello, everyone. My name is Peggy DePasquale, and I have recently started with the Wyoming Wilderness Association as the National Forest Wildlands Director. And my role will take on a lot of different responsibilities, but one of the ones I am most excited about is re-engaging with solitude monitoring um, with WWA and this volunteer program. In 2020, I was with WWA and got this program off the ground. It was much smaller. It was definitely in its infancy and pilot stages. And after 2 years of running the program, I moved on from WWA, and I want to bring some recognition to Carly Eidecker, who stepped in and really brought tons of professionalism and resources and grew the program to expand now across the Bridger Teton and Caribou Targhee National Forests and 4 wilderness areas, uh, the Gros Ventre, the Teton, the Jim Bridger, and the Jedediah Smith wilderness areas. So a big round of applause to Carly. And I skipped forward. There we go. And also a big round of applause to all of the partners who come together to make this possible. Friends of the Bridger Teton has been with us since early on in the program, just helping spread the word and rally volunteers. So a big thanks to Friends of the BT. I know several of those team members are on the call today, so thank you for supporting and being here. And the Great Old Broads for Wilderness and the whales over in Teton Valley have really stepped up to help cover almost all of our data collections on the Caribou Targhee National Forest on the Jedediah Smith. So a big shout out to the Great Old Broads. Thank you for your partnership. And of course to the Forest Service. These data collections are things that they are responsible to collect and to manage for. And they have created an incredible opportunity for all of us to engage in their management and support their work, and have been incredibly helpful and willing to engage with us as partners. So thanks to the Forest Service as well. And thank you to all of you, the volunteers who are here to be a part of the program. We wouldn't be able to do it, although this is a volunteer program. There is quite a bit of cost that goes into organizing and bringing this program to life. And we have an incredible grant through the National Wilderness Stewardship Alliance, which we have had for many years now. And then also support that we receive through Old Bills goes towards bringing this program to life. So thank you to NWSA and Old Bills Fun Run. As mentioned, this program has been going on for quite some time, since 2020. In the heart of COVID, it came to life and has just grown every year, bringing on more and more volunteers. And we're entering into our 6th season doing the program. And I am just so looking forward to seeing what we're able to accomplish throughout the season with the new volunteers who are getting trained through this video and those that will join us in the field. It really is a volunteer-driven program, so thank you to all of you, and thank you to those who help us train the volunteers. And with that, I would like to hand it over to our wilderness managers on the call and our forest partners. I'm going to kind of let them popcorn and give the why behind why solitude monitoring is important, and then also a little update from the wilderness manage that they are directly involved with. So let's hand it over to Jay Sammer from the Jim Bridger Wilderness. Thanks for being here, Jay.
Yeah, thank you there, Peggy. Welcome, everyone. My name is Jay Sammer. I'm the Wilderness and Recreation Program Manager here on the Pinedale Ranger District. And, we thank everyone for coming here and helping. I always ask the why for things. I've been a wilderness ranger or wilderness manager for the better part of my adult life, and spent years in the Yosemite Wilderness, the Katmai Wilderness, the Frank Church River of No Return Wilderness, and now I'm tasked with helping administer the Bridger Wilderness. And of course, I work with folks in the Teton Wilderness and the Gros Ventre Wilderness. And folks ask, and I did a lot of this when I was in my early 20s and whatnot. Why are we collecting these numbers? Why are we counting these people and collecting these widgets? And I didn't always get the best answer. And as time progressed, it began to dawn on me that wilderness is a special thing. It's not an accident. It took a lot of time. It took a lot of people. There's wilderness areas that I was a part of, bringing into reality as lately as 2017, the Jim McClure Jerry Peak Wilderness. So, public lands in an area doesn't just, become wilderness. Not all national parks are that. People are surprised to hear that the Yellowstone National Park has 0 acres of wilderness in it. So it is very special. And whether we are a 64 wilderness, a 1964 wilderness like the Bridger, or we're a little later like the Crevant, it's still one of those special places. And one of those metrics to manage this land, and it is a law, it's a public law, the Wilderness Act, has said that we have to maintain wilderness character from the time of designation, on forward. And one of those metrics we use, one of the big metrics we use is solitude. Of course, we have untrammeled, the natural quality, undeveloped, primitive and unconfined, and other features of value. But solitude is one of those ones that sort of floats to the top. Um, and it's a critical one because it's the one that can be most impactful to our experience within wilderness. And we have, as we participate in administering these areas, are tasked with the reality of keeping that at that level, that level of solitude, that level of wilderness character from time of designation. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say that each wilderness area is different. That a wilderness area in California is not the same as a wilderness area in a remote part of Alaska. And the same thing goes for the 4 wilderness areas that we're going to hear about today, and we may participate in doing the solitude monitoring in. But that is what we're bringing forward. We're bringing that data and that metric forward and giving it to the wilderness managers so that we can make informed decisions into the future. So some of those informed decisions are, what if there's too much visitation? What if there's too much impact, and not just to solitude, but also to the natural quality. And we can use the data we brought in to make those decisions, which may be more interpretation, more patrol presence, more web-based presence, more regulations if necessary, and even the daunting word, the permit word, which I know people like to say we need to do this or we need to do that, but whatever we choose to do, this data set, this that we're collecting now, and the fact that we collect it in an appropriate and professional fashion gives us that foundation to make those decisions. And as a wilderness manager, we take a credo to be as light on presence and government presence as possible to allow the experience of the visitor to have a higher level of solitude. And agency management actions in themselves are an impact to solitude. So we take all that very seriously, but this data that we're feeding into that data set provides that information into the future. And so if you go out and you collect data for us, I just ask that you do it in the utmost professional fashion and take it seriously, because we're not just counting people, we're observing trends over time. And those trends will lead to the decisions that we make into the future. So that's a little tidbit on the why and solitude monitoring, and just with the Bridger Wilderness. That's what I am tasked with managing here, and I have a cadre of folks. But I also just want to give folks the reality of it. We had a very large staff. There's only 6 of us left. That five core staff members in the Wilderness and Trail staff, down from 20 plus. And so we've lost our 1039s, our purely temporary staff. We've lost our 1313s through a variety of resignations. And we've also not been able to take advantage of our youth corps with Rocky Mountain Youth Corps and Montana Conservation Corps. So there's going to be a lot less presence out there. And right, wrong, or indifferent, our priority agency and it's a decision that's made above us, is said that wilderness trails and what we do in monitoring isn't a priority right now. So more than ever, we're relying and hoping that partners and friends and so on and so forth can help us gather this data, because we don't want to have holes in that data set going forward. And so with that, I'll hand it off to my next wilderness manager here. But I thank everyone for coming and taking this monitoring seriously, and have fun when you're out there because it's some of the most beautiful and amazing places in the United States here. I'm certainly intrigued every time I drive past or through the Gravon or near the Tetons, and certainly along the Wind River Front Range, which is looking into the Bridger. So thanks for everyone for being here, and I'll pass this on to our next wilderness manager.
Thank you so much, Jay. I really appreciate you setting the stage. Tim, would you like to add on to what Jay has shared?
Yeah, sure. Though I don't think I need to add much because that was very thorough, Jay. So thanks for covering all those points. I'm Tim Ferris. I'm the Trails and Wilderness Program Manager in the Jackson District. And yeah, just to kind of reiterate that situation is, we had a staff of about 9 Trails and Wilderness folks between seasonals and the permanents, and we're down to 3. So lost 2/3 of that staff, and the entire wilderness crew. And yeah, so it's going to be really hard to pull this stuff off. And like Jay said, these we really don't want to have holes in this data, especially, we've been running ours for several years. We already had a 5-year cycle, and I believe we're on year 3 now of this second cycle. And so yeah, there's going to be a lot of places that we just can't get to. And we greatly appreciate the help, any help that we can get on that sort of stuff. I don't know if I should be going into any specifics yet on those places. Maybe I'll say that for later. Of some of the places that we'll definitely not be getting, that would be great to have a little emphasis on. But yeah, that data is extremely important, extremely useful. And yeah, it's a tough situation. Our main priorities are going to be just trying to clear trails and keep them open and reduce damage to the wilderness. So anything that you guys can do is greatly appreciated. And yeah, but hopefully we'd see you out there if possible, if we're around. So yeah, Linda, do you want to add anything else? But it's kind of all I had.
I guess I'll just add a little bit more. I'm Linda Marigliano, and Recreation Program Manager on the Jackson Ranger District, and then work on forest planning related topics. But I think a little bit more about the why is that, and in particularly related to the protocol that we're using with the citizen monitoring, is in an increasingly motorized and mechanized world, and a lot of the writing in wilderness about why that is part of the law. So the Act says that we're to provide outstanding opportunities for solitude or a permanent and unconfined type of recreation. And that's unbelievably unique. There is no other legislation that has that kind of language that talks about the quality of an experience. And so it is a really important part of the Act. And as our world gets more crowded, it's becoming rare and rarer to find places where you really can escape from the sounds and sights of modern civilization, which is what a lot of the writing about solitude was really about. It was not necessarily about being alone. It was about the ability to escape from the obligations that we find ourselves in a modern civilization of, constantly running after work obligations and things, and just to be able to be and walk at a human scale or a human pace and absorb the environment around you. And that obviously has benefits for bonding with friends and family, and truly authentic experiences where you're not trying to meet some deadline out there. So that's what the essence of solitude is really about. And for years and years, we collected encounter data kind of on an opportunistic level. And when we went back and tried to really analyze that, we found that we really couldn't detect trends because it wasn't being collected in a rigorous protocol that allowed for comparison over time. And so we'd have just a few dots, data points in one place, and then 5 years later, a bunch more data places in a totally different place, and you just couldn't compare stuff. And so the way that this protocol is set up is designed so that it is more rigorous and can actually allow for the detecting trends over time. So I just wanted to add that is that's part of the reason why we place so much emphasis on doing it this way.
Thank you, Linda and Tim, for adding to this why, because I do think it's important. Although we're getting out into these beautiful places and collecting data as we go, there is a really important foundation to what has gotten us here. And I appreciate you kind of painting that picture along with Jay. We have one more wilderness ranger or wilderness manager on our call today, Jeremy from the Caribou Targhee and the Jedediah Smith Wilderness. Jeremy, do you want to add to what has already been shared and any updates from your neck of the woods?
Yeah, can you guys hear me all right?
Yes.
Perfect. No, well said, everyone. You guys hit everything I would have ever dreamt of saying. The one thing is, I'm a numbers guy, so this is our year number 5 over here, and it's great to get to that point. So, when the email came out that said this wasn't a priority and we wouldn't necessarily had to do it, I didn't hesitate for a second. That said, let's keep this going. I want to see where this goes. Let's keep these trends, going and getting our data collected. So, just really appreciative to have everyone continuing with the Solitude monitoring over here in the Wales for sure. So excited to get out there on a couple of training runs. Updates over here, same story as everywhere else. Pretty short staffed. There's a real good chance you might not see a single Forest Service person in the JED this summer. We've got other things we're working on. So it's going to be in our volunteers' hands to do all the Solitude monitoring, the log out, everything from there. So it's going to definitely be a different summer for sure. That's all I've got. And I'm going to have to jump off here and get my kiddos real quick. So if there's any questions on Caribou Targhee, maybe just send them over to Peggy and we'll be in touch and I can answer them at a later date.
That sounds like a good plan. Jeremy, thank you for prioritizing being on the call to give us your updates, and thank you for continuing to put time and energy into data collection and these protocols that we have now heard are apparently no longer a priority during this administration. But I think what programs like this show is that they are a priority to those of us that love the land and love these wild places. And I'm really passionate about this program and hope that this is just the start of a much bigger volunteer-led effort to show that there are people who really care and want to make sure that these wilderness characteristics are analyzed and managed for well. A little bit of background: I was working on the Grovant Wilderness for the last 2 years as a wilderness ranger and was terminated over the winter during the Doge cuts, and have really joined WWA with a vendetta, not just to try to bridge the gap of the staff that was lost, but also try to really get all of these wilderness managers with a team again, because no matter how much work we do, we're not going to take the place of these highly skilled, highly fit, highly passionate staff members who want to dedicate their life to stewarding these places. The volunteer programs are really important, but they are not a placeholder. They're really just a supplement, and it's something we can be proud of, but it's just one piece of a bigger effort right now. So thank you to all the wilderness managers on the call. We have one wilderness manager up from the Teton Wilderness who was unable to be on the call, but if you have questions about the Teton Wilderness, please direct them to me, and I will get them to Chad and others to help get answers for you. And thank you to Chad, who isn't here, but who is also partnering and helping bring this program to life. Okay. As we dive in the past, speaking of the Teton Wilderness, we've added a portion, an additional training. If you wanted to solitude monitor on the Teton Wilderness, we ask that you get trained on bear safe backpacking and camping and just travel in wild places. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized that this is relevant across all of our wilderness areas. When I'm in the Bridger or the Grovant or the Jed Smith, I'm very likely to run into a bear or have a bear run into something that I've left behind. And so there are great resources on the website through our Forest Service partners, but through many different entities. This QR code just goes to the PT site with all of the resources they have on what it means to work and recreate in bear country responsibly. And WWA really wants to put the onus on our volunteers to educate themselves. When you're out there, you're an ambassador of these wilderness areas and of the partners that are on this call today. And we really ask that you take it on yourself to educate yourself and lead by example and make sure that you are storing your food properly so there's no chance a bear is going to get into it. It's safer to travel in bear numbers. Groups of 3 or more is a great rule of thumb. If you can, make noise as you go. And the list of suggestions goes on, and please take the time to look into that before you go out and collect Solitude, so we can live and cohabitate with these incredible creatures safely. On that note, in addition to bears, there are many wilderness regulations, and we ask that as you're out there as an ambassador, you are making sure to look into what is specific to that wilderness, whether it's camping 200 feet from a lake and no closer, or burying your waist 6 to 8 inches deep or more, at least 100 feet away from any water. And another one that I like to talk about a lot is hanging your food 10 feet up and at least 4 feet out from a trunk. These are all regulations that rangers would be out there enforcing if we could, but there are very, very few rangers, if any, that will be on the trail this year. So please take it on yourself, not just to be out there collecting Solitude, but being an ambassador for these regulations that are in place to protect these wild places. That's kind of a broad overview. Any of the wilderness managers or others on the call that would like to add context to those points?
No, you covered that pretty good, Peggy. Thank you.
Sweet. And I'm happy to talk about any regulations more. I'm kind of a nerd when it comes to these things. The last few years, it's been a great joy talking to people about the why behind why these regulations are in place and what they are. So please reach out if you have more questions. Speaking of questions, this one I think we've had answered pretty well by the incredible wisdom we had around the why behind this whole program. But we're going to dive into it a little bit together now, this question of what is solitude? And I think we're all pretty good at kind of thinking about solitude as the difference between, this feeling of being alone like this, or, feeling like you're in the middle of a crowd like this and can't escape. And if you look to a dictionary definition, it's very literally the state or situation of being alone. But as Linda and Jay and Tim and Jeremy all talked about, there's something bigger here. And Linda, I think, hit on it really well. It's this idea of the quality of the experience you're having when you're out in wilderness, and this opportunity for connection to nature, and that's not being disturbed by the sights and sounds of civilization as you go along. And it's not an easy thing, I think, to quantify, but I feel as we dive in, I'm really impressed by kind of the brilliance of the protocol that we're following that enables us to do that. As Jay hit on, solitude is more than just this idea. It's actually written into law, and it's one of the 4 defining characteristics of wilderness. And this is actually a paragraph taken from the Wilderness Act. Number 2 has outstanding opportunities for solitude or a primitive and unconfined type of recreation. So it's more than just an idea or a quality, it's law, and that's pretty cool. And as Linda said, that makes our Wilderness Act very, very unique and special and worth upholding. So how do we uphold it? How do we take this idea and this law and actually build a practice around it and build a protocol around it? You know, although there are directions from above, every wilderness has the ability to manage this the way that they see fit and the way that they would like to. And, you know, if you go to the Cloud Peak Wilderness in the northwest corner of the state, they're doing this through a registration book. And here in the northwest corner of the state, we're using this basic protocol that is more than just a trail count or a registration book. It really is capturing the user experience and that quality of your experience when you're out on the landscape. And as I said, there's a brilliance behind it that I'm really impressed by, and I hope you are too. So each wilderness area has been broken down, and that comes a little differently depending where you are, but there are areas 6D to 6A, 6D being the least likely for opportunities for solitude up until 6A. And it's a cool way to break down the wilderness, and also a good awareness that not everybody's looking for that 6A opportunity. Some people feel more comfortable on a trail that has a few more additional hikers, and that's actually the opportunity for solitude that they're looking for. So all of these are still solitude, but there's a spectrum of exactly what that looks like. If you go to the Teton Wilderness, there are these solitude monitoring areas spread out across. There is a map here with all 8 of them, and if you go to our website, you can download this map. We'll get into that a little bit more, but all of these areas need to be collected for this summer. And then the Grovant, I believe, also has 8 different solitude monitoring collection areas. I should know that off the top of my head, but I'm now drawing a blank. Tim, is that right? It's 8, right? Okay, thank you. And those polygons are shown here on this map. And again, these are things that you can download and access on our website, on our resource page that I'll get into. And although all of these would also be great if we could have data collections from all of them, we do have some more priority areas that we can share in just a minute. And then the Bridger Wilderness, because of its shape, has gotten broken down into these 3 monitoring zones. And then with each monitoring zone, there's a 6A, 6B, 6C, 6D area. And so the Bridger has the most solitude monitoring zones, but that makes sense due to its kind of distribution and shape. And again, all of these maps, I won't go through each zone, are available to you to explore more. And I'm happy to talk about all the incredible places that are covered in them. And then last but not least, the Jedediah Smith Wilderness Solitude Monitoring areas are just a little different. Instead of the polygons like we see on the Bridger Wilderness, we have trail corridors. And so that's just one difference to note. If you're kind of jumping between these wilderness areas, know that on the Bridger Teton, they're polygons that kind of give freedom to go off trail, but if collecting on the Jed Smith, we really ask that you stick to these trail corridors. And this is where you come in. Altogether, across all of these wilderness areas, there are 33 zones. And we're aiming to do this between now and when the snow flies. And we need to collect both on weekends and on weekdays. And as Tim mentioned, we kind of do this over a 5-year cycle, and we are well into our 5-year cycle. But the way that we do it is we aim for 5 weekends and 5 weekdays every data collection year for that 5-year cycle. And so moving into this year, it would be great if we could get at least 66 data collections, one weekend and one weekday on all 33 zones across the wilderness. I think that would be my zone, and the way I've kind of set up our tracker for this season represents that. We can dive into that a little bit more. This protocol is super easy. It has you hiking into a monitoring zone and staying for at least 4 hours within the boundary of that solitude monitoring zone. And you're recording the number of travel encounters you have during the time you're there on a data sheet we'll dive into. And then you can do more than one session in each area. If you're out on a backpacking trip, like to Turquoise Lake, if you're there one day, do a monitoring collection, and then the next day you can do another one. It's really pretty simple. It's not rocket science. That's one of the awesome parts about this protocol, but there are certainly kind of sidebars to keep this data consistent across the longitudinal set. Oh, and I realize I missed Carly's email in this bullet, but please return the sheet to me, peggy@wildwyo.org, and you can do that through scanning a photo, or if you want to drop off the form with me in person, we can figure that out. And then feel great about contributing to the important community science initiative. This disclaimer I feel could be across the whole project, but just know that as volunteers, you're really assuming the risk of being out on the trail and collecting this data. This is not a workers' comp situation with WWA. This is very much just a volunteer opportunity to get out, and when you're out there, you're assuming all the risk involved. Before we move on to what the form looks like, I'm just curious, would anybody like to add context to this basic outline of the protocol, or any of the zones that you would like to highlight as maybe most important or the best priority for the summer?
Yeah, I don't know if this is the best spot for that, Peggy, but my main thought on this was for the Grovon especially, we're gonna try our best to have the small trail crew that we do have gathering that data when they're out on those trails, but it's really going to be focused on system trails. And there are I think there's 3 non-system trails. So McLeod Lake, Table Mountain, and Sheep Mountain, or Sleeping Indian. We're not really going to be up in those places, so I was just going to kind of put in a plug of like those that might be beneficial if there could be a little bit of focus on some of those places, just at least for the Grobot, because yeah, I don't think we'll be able to take days off to go up to those places. So.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Tim. And I have a system for kind of highlighting priorities on our season tracker for the year. There is a resource that we have on our website that shows all the monitoring areas, and I'm highlighting in green, and I'll show that in a minute. So we'll make sure that those areas are highlighted for this season.
All 3, part of the rationale behind those 3 priorities is that they're relatively easy to get to.
Mhm.
So all of those 3 areas don't require camping.
Very easy in a day hike. Absolutely. And they're all incredible hikes that even if you have done them, returning to any of those areas this summer would be an incredible way to spend a day you have free to help. So you've decided that you have a day free to go out and collect solitude monitoring data. You feel pretty good about the protocols after this training. What do you need to head out? And really, we have this incredible resource of the monitoring form that really guides you through your day and helps you collect the data as you go. And having this, a watch, and all the resources you need to be safe on a day in the mountains is going to set you up for success. To go through the form, please put your name down. If you're in a group, just your name is fine. But then the total you have in your party, and then the total hours you have monitored. We'd love to have the monitoring name. As we kind of went through those maps, you'd notice that each one had a key with kind of the monitoring name associated with it. So if you're on Sheep Mountain, put Sheep Mountain, or if you're in Green River Lakes 6D area, put Green River Lake 6D. But make sure that we know which monitoring area we should associate this data with. And then this is the form for the BT. So you'll see the 3 wilderness areas, Grovant, Teton, and Bridger. And we also have one of these forms linked to our website for the Caribou Targhee. And then please put the start location and stop location of your monitoring. And if this is an out and back, a loop, or a through hike, and the date that you're there, which day of the week, if it's a weekend, a weekday, or a holiday, and that'll help us kind of differentiate between those 5 of each that we're looking for. And then the start and the stop time. And this is just for those of us reviewing the data to check that you were truly in this monitoring area for 4 hours, at least 4 hours. So the start and stop times are when you enter into the data collection zone. So when you cross that boundary of the polygon, which is generally at a wilderness boundary, but not always. So make sure you're familiar with the polygon before you go in the maps. Weather is something else we ask for just because we do look at trends beyond just how many people are out. But if there is a fluke in the trend, nobody's out there on Memorial Day weekend at Goodwin Lake. Oh, maybe it's because there was a torrential snow or a torrential rainstorm or something like that, to just help us understand the data more. As you go, remember we're not trail counters. You're not trying to find everyone out on the trail that day. You're just trying to collect the encounters that you have because this is a data about your experience. So we have it broken down into day hikers and backpackers, the number of dogs you see out there, and then the stock users and riders. And each group, you would record the number of each of these that you run into. And at the end, you'll tally it all up here on the right side, total number of people, dogs, stock, and then kind of a total tally here in the bottom. And at the bottom, you can make any comments as well about your experience. So something to consider is if there were, 200 cars at the trailhead, but you didn't see anyone on the trail, or you saw, a lot of bear sign in an area. Put that down because real people are reading these and can garner good information and maybe bring awareness to that trail system for future volunteers or the public, or just have a better idea of what you experienced out there. You're our boots on the ground. Um, Anybody want to add more context to what they see this form, how they see this form as a tool?
So I have a little comment here for the Bridger Wilderness, and correct me if I'm wrong, Peggy, but we have a random generated date and time, or date and zone, or date monitoring and zone. So sorry, I was tripping on my words there. But anyways, and we're just doing that to focus some data. It's an experiment, but I guess the long and short of it is Peggy is the holder of the spreadsheet for anybody who wants to go into the Bridger. And so get with her if you're interested in that and say, I'm interested in dates in the Bridger. What do you have available? And she can hopefully help you with that. Is that a good way to go about? Is that a good protocol for you there, Peggy?
Yeah, that works absolutely great. And we do have the return of our season tracker. So we have kind of our priority, all of the data collection areas outlined in tables with those green highlights around our priorities. And then an additional piece of information we have for the Bridger Wilderness are the dates that we've already randomly generated for those data collection areas associated with the Solitude monitoring areas. And I just want to make a pitch here because for all the other wilderness areas, reach out to me, sign up. If something comes up, we understand. We'll work on getting another volunteer out there. But if you reach out and say that you're going to be at a certain zone on a certain date on the Bridger and then just kind of blow it off, that means that we've missed our chance to collect data in that area for the Bridger Wilderness this summer. And I just ask that if you want to sign up for the Bridger Wilderness Data Collection Areas, be absolutely sure that you can commit to it before you do. And I'll have that conversation with those of you who do reach out about it just one more time to make sure that we don't miss out on the opportunity to collect this data because someone blows it off or has something come up that sounds more fun. Obviously, we know unforeseen things happen all the time. Thanks, Jay.
Thank you, Peggy, and thanks for bringing up that the sign up situation because I forgot that.
There's some more resources coming, but before we continue on, I just want to bring up a question of how is this data used? And I think Jay hit on this and some other managers hit on that in the why of the reason behind our collection. But how is the data used is an important question to cover because it brings up this idea of wilderness stewardship performance. And up until just recently, this was an incredible piece of management that all wilderness areas were tasked with choosing different elements that they felt represented what was special about their wilderness areas and then coming up with protocols to manage for them and then also come up with ways to show that they were managing them, to analyze the work they were doing and show what was happening out there in the field. And across all of these wilderness areas that we're working with, opportunities for solitude was identified as an important WSP element. And although right now we're getting some mixed messaging around whether or not this is important, what I'm hearing across the board, and I couldn't feel more strongly about it, is that WSP is still very important. And continuing collecting this data will allow us to keep it on the radar of our Forest Service partners into the future and hopefully get support behind it again. In addition to WSP, there's also wilderness character monitoring, which is a task for the Forest Service to look at trends over time and the qualities of wilderness are all included in this practice, and solitude is just one of them. And we're helping them kind of get that just that vision of what is it looking like over time. I think one great example is COVID. You know, if we just looked at use during the year of COVID, we might really feel like we had a big problem on our hands and would have to act fast. But as we look at the trend over time, that is much more a blip on the radar, and we have the data to support the use that's happening out there and this wilderness character of solitude and show that we have we have the information we need to make informed decisions. And the more data we have, the more informed our decisions can be and the more justified we can be in. And when I say we, it's the Forest Service in the management solutions that they come up with to address maintaining these wilderness characters. What else should be added here and this idea of wilderness character monitoring in WSP?
I think you covered that, Peggy, at least from what I see, and these are also what I'll tell folks is these are really heavy subjects sometimes, and I am always happy to talk about it because the wilderness philosophy and understanding it is a never-ending growth and experience for me. And I learn something new every year, which is why I love it. So I guess I'll put the plug in at least for me and wilderness and in particular the Bridger Wilderness. If you ever want to talk about some of these things, I can give you my take on it. You know, all the wilderness managers that I've worked with are incredible wealths of knowledge, but if this is some of the first times you've seen it, it may seem confusing and even counterintuitive in some ways. So I'll just put that in there.
Thank you, Jay. I know I'm going to be reaching out to continue talking about it because I still feel like I have so much to learn and I'm barely scratching the surface of some of these topics. But just know that the work that you're doing to collect data is informing complex and important management considerations behind the scenes, and you're really helping them make informed decisions. And that's based on science and data over time. One plug I'll make that I know I think Jay mentioned at the beginning, but many people are like, you're collecting this data because you want to slap permits on these areas. And permits are just one management tool. And really what I have found in almost all of my data collection is that this data is showing that we don't have a problem and that our opportunities for solitude are there as they should be. And in the face of us finding maybe that those trends are slipping to a place where we do need to respond, there are many tools in our toolkit beyond permits that we can turn to. And this, if anyone asks, is not a ploy and a, I don't know, veiled attempt at putting permits on our wilderness system. This is a tool so we can make informed management decisions. Some frequently asked questions. Oh boy, I'm clicking all over the place. Some frequently asked questions that I think are helpful to go through because they really round out this protocol. Starts with, does my 4-hour monitoring time start as soon as I leave the trailhead or at the wilderness boundary? And as we talked about, there are these trail corridors on the Caribou Targhee and then these polygons on the BT. And your 4-hour monitoring time starts as you pass through the boundary of the polygon or get onto the trail system. What if you don't see anyone? Do you just throw away your data collection sheet because no data is no data? Absolutely not. Seeing no one is very important data. That's a great indicator of solitude, and we would love to hear back from your day out on the trail when you had it all to yourself. That's very important data. What if I meet a group of people heading into the monitoring zone that I just left? Can I count them? As soon as you pass outside the boundary of that polygon or get off of that trail corridor, you are outside of your 4 hours, you are outside of the monitoring zone, and that is no longer your experience within that data collection zone, and so you do not count it. That's a little bit counterintuitive, but really think about this as you are capturing your experience within the data collection area, and that's science. What if I come across an unoccupied camp? This is written into the protocol, but we'll cover it quickly. If you come upon an unoccupied camp, you count one person per tent that you see. What if my hike takes me in and out of the monitoring zone? This is a good question, and if you're hunting or out looking around for something and not just following the trail, your time out there might take you in and out of the monitoring zone. Your 4 hours have to be a total of 4 hours within the monitoring zone. So if you spend an hour in and leave and then come back and spend 3 more hours in, that's a full 4 hours and you can count that. But just make sure you're not counting people when you're outside of the polygon or off of the trail corridor. What if I see the same group of people twice? This is a good question because it depends. If you see the same group of people within 15 minutes of each other, you are going to count them just once. But if you see them outside of that 15-minute window, they are considered a second encounter and you would count them a second time. So if you see the same group of people within 15 minutes, same encounter. Outside of that 15 minutes, different encounters. And there's some things with the 4-hour monitoring time and then this 15-minute. So make sure you have some way to kind of watch a clock as you're going along during your day. It's a helpful tool. How do I know I'm in my monitoring zone? We'll get into this more in a second, but we have great resources to help you if you follow any mapping apps, especially Avenza is the best one to use. It's free. You can download the maps and you can actually see in real time, geolocated, where you are on the map and if you're inside the monitoring zone or on the trail corridor or off of it or outside of it. So that's a cool resource. Anyone who is really savvy with a map could very easily look at these polygons on the maps we provide and then kind of look at a topo, paper topo of their own and make the same conclusions, I think. That's how I've been doing it for years, but I am excited that this phone app is now available. If you would like additional training and to come out into the field and kind of see some of these practices in person, please join us. We have upcoming training hikes in July, and over the course of the month, we're going to visit a monitoring area in each wilderness. We'll be going to Holmes Cave in the Teton Wilderness on July 12th. to Dry Ridge and the Jedediah Smith on July 16th. And we're partnering with the Great Old Broadsford Wilderness to host that hike. On July 19th, we're going up to McLeod Lake in the Grovant Wilderness. This is going to be a small group outing. We are going to be pairing solitude monitoring with campsite monitoring, and it's going to be a really good work day. And getting up to McLeod Lake is a big push. So we're asking for a strong fit, small group of people to help out on that McLeod Lake day. And that is one of those off-trail 60 areas that is truly special if you're interested in coming along. And then July 30th, we're going to head out to the Green River Lakes trailhead and do that 60 area in the Jim Bridger Wilderness. And I know lots of friends of the Bridger Teton staff are going to join us there, and hopefully many volunteers as well. You can head over to Wyoming Wilderness Association's website either by scanning the QR code or just going to our events outings tab, and you can register for any of these hikes. As volunteers, all of our hikes with WWA, they're free. And in the past, we've really focused on educational outings. And this year, all of our outings have a stewardship component, which I think is really special. So thank you for kind of evolving with us as we move from education to stewardship, and know that there will still be a strong education component of all of these outings. As mentioned, we have our Solitude monitoring resource page. If you head over to the Get Involved tab and then click on Solitude monitoring, you'll come to a page, a hub of incredible resources with an overview of what Solitude monitoring is. This virtual training will be posted there in the next couple days, but if you want to go watch the one from last year, it's awesome too, and you could refresh as soon as we're off of this meeting. We also have key definitions, frequently asked questions, similar to those we've gone over on the call, our basic monitoring protocol, and then also this U.S. Forest Service National Minimum Protocol for monitoring outstanding opportunities for solitude. And that's kind of the this high standard of what solitude monitoring could look like. And we have created one that's tweaked to really fit our need here on the ground in the northwest corner of Wyoming. And then using Avenza Maps is the last resource, and that walks you through step by step how to download Avenza and then how to download all of these files to help guide you in the field and let you know if you're in or out of the wilderness. And then the last resource to go over is this 2025 field tracker. It is a Google Sheet. You can't edit it, but I can. But you can scroll through. There are instructions and my email and contact information, and it goes through each wilderness and all of the data collection zones for each wilderness, and then how many sessions we're really looking for to kind of get those 5 weekends, 5 weekdays across the whole wilderness. And then as Jay and I talked about, if you come down to the Bridger, you'll see that there are those dates that we randomly generated, and you are committing to that date with complete confidence if you sign up for one of those. And you can get to that page by scanning that QR code. So with that, we have just a couple minutes left. What questions do we have from the group? All right. Without hearing any questions or seeing any raised hands, I'm going to move in to a test your skills section. And I encourage anyone to jump in and answer. We've covered most of these, but there are a couple real tricky ones. So you're heading out to monitor. Does your monitoring time start at the monitoring zone boundary or at the trailhead where you leave your car?
At the zone boundary?
Yes, at the zone boundary. Thank you, Cara. Okay, so you're hiking in your monitoring zone and you hear at least 2 voices. Do you count them?
Yes.
Thanks, Betsy. Yes, you do count them. You can tell you hear 2 voices across the pond. You would count them. That is the quality of your experience on your data collection. So thank you. You stop for a lunch break while monitoring and you spot an unoccupied campsite on the other side of the creek. It's outside the monitoring area. Do you count it as an encounter? You're inside the monitoring area, but the campsite's outside. What do you think? Lori, do you have an answer for us? I see you just highlighted.
Said no, I'm in the zone and they're not, so I'm only monitoring what's in the zone, right? Or wrong?
No, this is a question that I think we've had um confusion on over the years, and that's why we put it in there, because it is one of those ones that doesn't make complete sense until you think about your gathering data about your experience in the zone. And if you see them outside the zone, that is still impacting your experience within it. And so you would count this one. But if they're in and you're out, that's not your experience in the zone, so you wouldn't count it. But if you're in and they're out, you do. All right. On that last tricky one, thank you all for joining us today and learning about solitude monitoring. I am looking forward to seeing some of you on our in-person training hikes in the future throughout July, and hope that you'll reach out with any questions you have as you dive into this protocol. I want to say a thanks again to our partners, the Friends of the Bridger Teton and the Great Old Broads for Wilderness, for helping us spread the word and rally volunteers. And then again, to all of those still working at the Forest Service right now, holding it down, making sure that this important work is still getting done, and finding time to collaborate with partners like Wyoming Wilderness Association to bring volunteer programs like this to life again this summer. So thank you to everybody. Please, if you have any questions, email me, Peggy DePasquale at peggy@wildwyo.org. And with that, we'll call it a training. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Forest Service folks.